We here at the Sports History Network proudly partner with 26 podcasts, all revolving around the history of sports. But did you know that many of our hosts were sports history authors way before they started their shows? It's true. We've got Joe Ziemba, host of When Football Was Football, Joe Zagurski, host of Pro Football in the 1970s, Mark Morthier, host of Yesterday's Sports, Tommy Phillips, host of Lombardi Memories, and Scott Adamson, co-host of From the 55-Yard Line. All these authors have many books for you to choose from. To check them out, go to our website at sportshistorynetwork.com/sportshistorybooks. Pick up your copy today. Soundtrack provided by Kevin MacLeod of filmmusic.io.
I'd like to welcome you to Football is Family Podcast. This is Jeremy McFarland, and I want to share something with you. I recently started a new franchise with a friend of mine on Madden 21. We decided to do a fantasy draft, which with each one of us picking a different team from a different conference. I ended up picking the Buffalo Bills. And having never played with the Bills, I did a little digging on the setup page. This is the page where you can change the difficulty of your opponent. I don't want to have them too hard, so that they're on pro. But anyway, this is also the page where you can change the jersey of your team and of your opponent. Now, I spent several minutes looking at those jerseys and helmets, and it was beautiful. I saw jerseys and helmets that I recognized from the 90s when the Bills went to 4 straight Super Bowls, that the ones that Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas and Bruce Smith wore. I remember OJ Simpson wearing the older Buffalo Bill jerseys. Needless to say, I've worn nothing but the 90s jerseys so far into my franchise. Whether you realize it or not, jerseys, helmets, hats, etc., all play a part in the history of any sport. Think back to your favorite team and when you started following them. Odds are you're going to think back to the jerseys they wore. The pinstripes for the Yankees, the star for the Cowboys, the purple and gold for the Lakers, the beautiful two-tone blue for some team out of Nashville. The list goes on and on. Today we're going to talk to a fan of sports jerseys, and I'm going to let him introduce himself in a bit. In this interview, you're going to hear about why he loves sports jerseys, some of his favorites, and just how many jerseys he owns. I am both envious of him and want to be him at the same time. If you would, please subscribe to this podcast by pressing that subscribe button and join us on the Sports History Network. There are several other podcasts to enjoy. This is the home of your yesteryear of sports history. You can also follow me at Jeremy_McFarland or on Facebook at the Football is Family Podcast. And we're back for another episode of the Football is Family Podcast. And I'd like to have my guest introduce himself for us.
Yes, my name is Joe Genovese. I run the GOAT Jerseys Twitter account. And basically, I've been into jerseys since I was a kid. I'm 46. I grew up in the era when jerseys were untouchable in my book. You know, you had the 70s, the 80s, going into the 90s. One day I just was being just a lover of jerseys I was sitting in my shower. It was funny. I was in the shower and basically I had this idea like, you know what? I don't really see a page or an account where people just post jerseys, write little notes. And I said, you know what, let me just try something. And boom, I started posting a few things, and a few people that are well-informed on jerseys like Paul Lucas from UniWatch and Phil Hecken, they started reposting my stuff. And boom, I started just getting an amazing following, and I enjoy doing it every day. And now I'm up to almost 17,000 followers, which is really awesome. And it's been really fun just doing it on a day-to-day basis.
Now, I have followed you since I started this podcast. I kind of found you about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and you have a lot of baseball pictures. I saw one with Lou Piniella and the Kansas City Royals hat that he had on the top of his head. I believe.
Yes. Yeah, Sweet Lou.
Sweet Lou, and it looked like it was about 3 sizes too small.
Now, back then in the 70s, and the hats weren't made the way they were today, where they have that like higher brim. Everything was kind of like low, and I don't know if Lou had a huge head or if they just. But yeah, it looked really funny. He was just sitting on top of his head. It almost looked like those Oscar Gamble pictures with the big afro when his hat was just kind of just hanging up there.
I guess I'm just jealous for the hair is what it boils down to.
Yeah, those 70s hair, man, they just had it on lock, man. Wow.
They really do. But our main emphasis here is over football. So tell me, if you have your top 5 jerseys of all time, what would they be?
Man, I have to go. I know some people, the traditionalists, don't like the creamsicles Buccaneers,
No,
but
hey,
I mean,
I love them. Don't
listen.
other than it could have been a little bit more intimidating for the Errol Flynn, but keep going.
Yeah, I wish they were really good when they wore them, which would have been even better. I mean, you had like the Leroy Selmans and man, even Testaverde even wore them, Steve DeBerg. But I mean, they had some pretty bad teams, but man, those unis, I mean, whether it was home or away, were just beautiful. Those definitely go down. A lot of people don't. I don't know, but I love the Falcons jerseys, like when they had Billy White Shoes Johnson, and even up to Dion when he was young. Those Falcons jerseys were amazing. The whole uniform. I mean, the Falcons now, the jerseys now are awful in my book. I mean, I can't really even look at them. I love the Seahawks jerseys actually too, and Dave Craig around that era. Another thing with the neon into the Seattle doesn't really work for me. And I'm a Jets fan, so obviously I don't like the Patriots at all. Sadly, I'm a Jets fan. But the Pats unis, man, like, the Andre Tippett years, and they were beautiful. I mean, I know like they probably don't want to go back to them for the simple fact they've been so great in these unis. I get it, but man, would I love to see the Patriots go back. And then I have to say I probably have definitely 2 more in terms of the Oilers. The Oilers with the powder blues, man. I'm just a baseball guy, so anything powder blue, I'm in. And then the Chargers, obviously, the powder blue Chargers with the lightning bolt. I mean, even when they went a little bluer during the Dan Fouts years, I mean, they were still beautiful. So those are probably my top. Obviously, there's some classic ones that will forever be beautiful, like the Chiefs, the Vikings. I mean, those are just legendary. Even Green Bay and Dallas when they wear. I actually like the older Dallas when they had that that blue. It was almost like that blue gray look. They don't wear those anymore, but yeah, those are some of the ones I enjoy. And football has some beautiful looking jerseys. I love them.
Now, is that the old school one with the white helmet and the blue star?
Yes.
Yes. They sometimes roll those out on Thanksgiving, and I don't know if they're going to do that this year.
Yeah, those are those.
That.
I would too. I think I'm trying to think of the era of that. Do you remember the era?
When the Cowboys were introduced in the 1960s, I believe it was that first year. I want to say it was the first year, and I might have the book, but I'm not going to look for it right now. But it was within about just a handful of years that they went to the silver helmet.
Mm-hmm.
But the white helmet, if you were to watch the first season, they would show, the follies of the first couple of seasons. They had the white helmet then. But the one that you brought up that I really enjoy, and I really wish that they would go back to, and I tell my son this, is the old school Seattle Seahawks helmet. To me, Jim Zorn, Kurt Warner, Steve Largent, the team was not that good, but the uniforms are so much better than they are now. Oh,
totally agree. If any team, I mean, beside the Patriots, but I understand why they don't go back. But the Seahawks, I mean, that was my era too. Like you said, Kurt Warner, man, was he a great running back? They had Easley. Easley was an amazing safety. Yes. I mean, Largent was just unbelievable. I always loved that video of Largent when there was an interception and he came back and just demolished a linebacker or someone on a block. And you think like this skinny dude, man, he just crushed this guy. I got to find that and post that one day. It was amazing. But yeah, I think the Seahawks, I actually have an old school Seahawks jersey from that era. I'll actually post it up tomorrow on the GOAT jerseys and show you.
Yeah,
But
tag me on that if you
I'll tag you in it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. It has, the old school perforated holes. You remember that era? It was just, remember they had even some guys wore the cutoff ones like Bosworth.
Yes.
Yeah, Seahawks are beautiful.
And I don't know if you remember the show. It's just a few years ago called Tackle My Ride.
No, I don't.
Okay, that's I tell you what, if you can find it, it came on the NFL Network, but they went and found deserving fans, NFL fans that do so much for the team or for the community, and they found one from Seattle who actually changed his middle name to Seahawk. And I tell you what, he had a mullet, and I respect the hair game, I really do. He worked well. But they took his truck and they put the old school Seahawk logo on it. And I'm telling you what, Seahawks are top 10 in my list, but if I had that vehicle, they would be number one.
Man, I would love to see that. That's amazing. Yeah, it's like, sometimes they had like the bullpen cars in baseball where when the reliever would come out, they'd drive him into the mound.
Oh, yes.
They had those. Yeah, they had those in baseball. And I saw one in the street one time. It was like a Yankee car in pinstripes. And I said, oh my, I would love to just have a Yankee bullpen car. Like, that's like the coolest thing. So like, I could relate with the Seahawk thing. That's really cool.
Well, they did it for several other ones as well. To me, the best one they did one for the Vikings. They did one for the Browns. They didn't do it for the Titans, and I was upset because I wanted to see who would be tightened up. But you bring up some old school jerseys, and you might know this better than I do, but when the Fran Tarkenton era of the second time he was with the Vikings, they had a glossy cover on their helmet, didn't they?
Believe so, yes.
But now it's matte, and I kind of like the matte better than the gloss for some reason.
Yeah, I think it goes with the era too. I mean, also back then, I think they had like the gray face mask. And
yes.
Then, through the years, obviously, I think now it's purple. I believe it is. I'm not sure, but I know as the years go by, I mean, a lot of those face masks were actually gray. Even the Oilers were, that was just kind of that era. But yeah, the Vikings, man, it's just a classic. I feel like that the Vikings, the Chiefs, I mean, they don't really ever have to do much to change their jersey. When you have a classic, it's like, what are you going to do? It's like the Yankees. What could you possibly do to that uniform? Because then you change history. I mean, some of the teams that don't have a long history, I get it. You want to, change something, but certain teams, I feel like just need to be left alone.
Now, would you agree that as much as I don't like the Chargers, Can I say it one more time? I don't like the Chargers. Yes. That the powder blue that Lance Alworth wore probably is the best overall.
Untouchable. I think that. I mean, that's top. They're top 5 for me in any uniform. Just and I look at it now, and it's like so many changes. It's like with the Rams. The Rams Eric Dickerson era. Even going even farther back, but some uniforms, if you have a classic look in your history, then go back to it. If you want to, tweak it a bit, but I never understood why people have if you don't have a classic look and you want to experiment, then I get it. That's fine. Keep trying until you find something that works. But when you have a classic and people want it, fans want it, people buy the throwbacks, you see the crowd at a game and so many people have that era of the jersey on, you would think that they would just, go back to that. But I don't know. Some people I'm happy the Browns actually went back to a jersey. I mean, during those like Brian Sipe years when they had the orange with the brown, I mean, there was some really good Browns jerseys, but they're simple. Like Browns are simple. Keep it simple and go back to what works. But I think they kind of found a little niche now of kind of recreating their history.
What is the draw for throwbacks?
Man, I think just like guys like me want to relive their youth, in terms of what you wore growing up. And when we were kids, we couldn't really get the jersey. It wasn't easy to get a jersey. Now you can go anywhere and get a jersey. You can go to the mall. You can go to eBay. You can go to, Ebbets, who makes they make all the throwbacks from every year. The wool throwback. So you can go Fanatics, well, all these sites. But when I was a kid, I mean, to get a jersey, they really weren't the real jersey. So, I had like a Ken O'Brien jersey and an Al Toon jersey and a Mark Gastineau jersey, but it just had the number. It didn't even have their name because they didn't have the rights, the licensing rights back then. So, I think, the older guys like me in the 40s, they want to say, hey, I want that jersey that, Freeman McNeil had. I want to wear that jersey with his name on it. Or I want to wear that, Lawrence Taylor jersey that I couldn't wear when I was a kid. So I think that's kind of like my era. And then, the younger kids, obviously, they don't know. They have it easy. They could just go and get any jersey at any time.
What is the ugliest jersey you've ever seen? And why is it the Denver Broncos original jersey?
The Broncos original, which you mean? I'm trying to think what their original jersey was.
It's before the Orange Crush, I believe. If I remember the story behind it, is when they were founded, the owner was so cheap that he went and bought the jerseys from a baseball team.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. That's sort of like the way the Seattle Pilots kind of they just basically took the same everything and just transferred the letters over because they would just be you hear a lot of stories regards to that. But the ugliest jersey, that's a really good one. I'm trying to think of. I mean, I know this is crazy, but I'm not saying all time, but the Seahawks, I can't really look at the Seahawks when they wear that neon jersey, like the Color Rush or whatever, and it's neon. Yeah. That's top three. I don't know if I have a number one, but that right there is just not football. That has to go. I can't even look at that.
It's a little rough. I believe you remember the Green Day one that they had. That might be the one you're talking about. That they were going to have a day where they had Green Day play. They were going to have a green rush for recycling, and then they brought that one out, and I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah, certain things just who thought of this to do it, because, and like I said, especially teams with a long history and one of the legendary teams, you can't put any jersey out. It's just like like I say with the Yankees, even they made the teams wear different hats one year, or for the I don't know. I just think I'm not into that. I don't think there should be. I don't even think there should be. What do they do? Like when they do what is it called for certain days? I just don't feel like jerseys should just be jerseys. They shouldn't change certain things. If you're going to change a jersey, like I said, it just has to be right. If it's a traditional classic jersey, please just keep it that way.
Well, that's part of the reason why. And I'm looking here. I have a Mark Mariani cutout in my office, and he's wearing his Titans blue, two-tone blue. Well, do you think that teams finally say, you know what, we're not selling jerseys like we should. Let's change up the color just a notch?
Yeah, and I feel like too. I feel like there should be people. I mean, I'm not just saying for me but it has to be different generations of people where, like, you can't have maybe like a 50-year-old person or a 20-year-old. I feel like you have to have a bunch of people in a room that are from different eras to go over it and pick the right thing. I feel like sometimes I see a jersey that comes out and I'm like, who designed that? I don't know anybody. Because if I post, sometimes I'll post a bad jersey on my site just to say, what is this? And you see how many people are like, what is, so it's not just me. So I don't even with the Jets now, the Jets came out with these new uniforms, and I love the green. Like, I love that Kelly green. But the wording and what is it? Like, I mean, even from when I came up in the 80s, and those were classic Jets jerseys. Al Toon was just green.
Yes, they were.
Even when Wayne Corbett was even, then they went to that darker green. They got it was just like, that's not it. And then if you go back to Namath, they have good jerseys. So whoever designed these to be in this, I don't know. It's very frustrating. I guess maybe I'm a little too anal with it for the fact of how much I love jerseys, but maybe the average person doesn't care and they'll buy any jersey because they just want to wear their favorite player's jersey. But for people like me, it's very bothersome sometimes to see how bad a team could go.
How many jerseys do you own?
I probably own, I would say, man, I wish I would have had, when I was younger, I feel like I almost had more. When I got into like my mid 20s, maybe like 26, 27, I got rid of a lot of jerseys. And then a friend of mine owned a shop in Atlanta when I was living down there, and he was selling a store. And he was like, hey, listen, I'll basically give you most of my collection for basically half what it's worth because I can't keep the store. So I bought that, and, you know, I sold some here and there, but I would say probably right now, maybe like close to 100.
And what's your favorite one?
Oh, man. Let me see what I have in here. Well, they have a classic. I love this one. It came out like in the 80s. It's a zip up Philadelphia Phillies pinstripe, and the zipper still works. I mean, it's beautiful, and it's the Sandknit. If you remember those in the 80s, they had the Sandknit jerseys. Yeah, so and that's exactly what my Seahawks one that's here too. My Seahawks one has Largent. It doesn't have his name, but it's 80, and it has the holes in it. Oh man. So I would say I love the Largent. I love the Phillies. Those are probably two of my favorite. I don't have like many really, really old jerseys, I guess, because just the era. I always collect the era that I'm used to I collect like late 70s, 80s, getting to the 90s, it gets a little crazy. So I think those two are my favorite. I mean, that I would say if I had to, somebody said, you know, wear your favorite jersey, I'd probably put those on. I'm very happy this Phillies jersey, which is probably, I would say, man, it's probably 40 years old. And the zipper still works and it's in mint condition. So I'm pretty proud of that one.
Well, see, that's, you know, when my wife says, well, you have too much of this stuff or too much of that stuff, I said, well, at least it keeps me off the streets. You know, I have a hobby that keeps me off the streets. Like, what am I going to do? So at least you got a hobby that'll keep you off the streets.
Without a doubt. I mean, between the jerseys and it's funny, during the pandemic, I got back into card collecting that I was huge on when I was a kid, and I haven't collected maybe since the early 90s. And then I got back into it, just, you know, ran into some card breaks that I was like, what the heck is this? And now my daughter's 6, she's into it. So between, you know, the jerseys and the cards, yeah, like you said, when you have a family, you know, where are you really going? What are you really doing? But at least it keeps you busy and kind of brings back the fun of your youth, and, you know, kind of keeps you fresh.
You know, that's I have one jersey in particular that I hold. Well, I have two, actually, and I had to find this because last year I got to meet Eddie George here in outside in Nashville, and I had his jersey. Hadn't worn it in a while because I didn't want to mess it up. But I found it, and alongside the Eddie George jersey, I found my Steve McNair jersey.
Wow.
Yeah. Now that era of Titans jersey to me is, I guess the word is pure. It's just, they're better than what they are now.
Yep, I agree.
And maybe like you're saying, that we are kind of drawn to the era that we started following that particular team or person more so than what we are now.
That's true. I totally agree. And I agree with you on the Titans. If I had one word to describe that, was clean. They were just they were super clean. I mean, like if they went back to that right now, I mean, they were beautiful. I mean, they had some really good teams as well. I have to bring up a jersey that means a lot to me because I have a game used jersey from the Vikings from a friend of mine. His name is Jimmy Kennedy. He was a defensive tackle for the Vikings. He was the 12th pick of the, I believe, 2003 draft from the Rams. And he's from my hometown in Yonkers, New York. And he's a good friend of mine. And years ago when he was close to retiring, he sent me a jersey and he wrote a little note on the back, and it's a game used. So you see all the marks on it when he was with the Vikings. So that always is like something that like I'll cherish because, you know, you saw someone you knew actually be super successful. He played in Penn State with LeVar Arrington.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They had that ridiculous defense with him, Courtney Brown, and LeVar Arrington. They were just like unbelievable. And I was so happy. I mean, like to be the 12th pick of the first round of the NFL draft. I mean, that's unbelievable. And he's a great guy. He retired now. His last year, which was really cool, he went on to win a Super Bowl with his hometown Giants. So he went out as a Super Bowl champ. And that jersey definitely, you know, sits in my office, and it's something I'll always cherish.
Well, see, that's what do you say before I go into what I was about to say? What do you say about is it called monochromatic or just one color jersey? Jersey and pants. Do you think that goes, or do you think that's too much?
You know what? A lot of people do not like them. I like them on occasion. I mean, sometimes they look good. I won't sit here and say that I like them every time or I don't like them. It depending on the team and the color. Sometimes when something's way too bright, it doesn't work. And if something's too dark, I don't like the all black look. I'm really not into that at all. I don't even like anything with the Jets again. They went to black. Like that's so 2000, like when the Mets went black with black. It's just like, that is so old. What do you need black? If it's not in your color scheme, what do you need black for? Black is Steelers, black is Raiders. That's black. Even the Falcons, black and red. But with that is for me is most of the time I don't like it, but on occasion sometimes it looks good.
Well, when you look at your childhood, you might follow one player. Growing up, you and I grew up around the same time. We didn't have ESPN. I followed the Broncos. I followed the Oakland A's. I followed the Boston Red Sox and the Boston Celtics, LA Lakers. We weren't able in Bon Aqua, Hickman County, where I grew up in Tennessee, we weren't able to get a lot of stuff. We were lucky once a week to get the game of the week for baseball or football or basketball. We were lucky, but when we saw the jerseys, I knew that was the Lakers. I knew those were the Broncos, and definitely knew those were the Oakland A's because no one had the green like that. And, we grew up liking the jersey, and we've kind of followed the player. When you think of a jersey that fits a team, this is the jersey, this is the color scheme, and if I were to say this is the color, what do you think that people would recognize right off the bat when they saw those colors? That belongs to that team.
I think you hit it, the A's. I mean, that they've never really went away from what looks great. I mean, the color, even now they brought the Kelly, that green back. But I mean, my favorite player growing up was Ricky Henderson.
Yeah.
He was I did everything like him. I batted like him. I tried to steal like him. I did snatch catches in the air. I got in trouble with my coaches, but I loved Ricky Henderson. And I loved him when he was on the A's, just from the colors. I used to love his rookie card. That's when I started collecting, and I loved the A's. Obviously, I was a diehard Yankee fan. I grew up 10 minutes from Yankee Stadium, but I loved the A's colors. And when Ricky came to the Yankees, I was like, oh, this is the greatest thing in the whole world. I remember being in his fan club. I still have his autographs. But like for something with like the A's that had those amazing uniforms from – you go all the way back from when they first started and then all the way into like those 70s with, they just had like with Reggie and then, they never really changed. I went a little darker, but like the color scheme of the A's, it's just something about that green and the yellow and and that white. I mean, from any era you go and you see that, it's just the Oakland A's. I mean, I'm just being honest. They're probably one of my top, 2 or 3 baseball jerseys of all time, because you could go to any era and find an amazing different colorway, because they wore them different ways, whether they had the green pullovers or they had the white with the yellow, or then they had even the gray with the script Oakland. I mean, there was so many great looks.
I have several baseball cards of Mark McGwire. I think he had white pants and green shirt at one time, uniform top, and that looked pretty slick too.
Yep, they had the pullover with the pullover green, and then it was an Oakland that had across the chest.
Yes.
Yeah, that was beautiful jersey. Yeah, Oakland A's, man, they beautiful.
But see, that's something that people say, well, what's the big deal about jerseys? Jerseys make the team.
Yes,
in college, they didn't really have their names on the back of their jersey for the long time, but you knew who the Notre Dame Fighting Irish were from their uniforms, and my University of Alabama Crimson Tide, and you knew who they were by their jerseys. But teams like Oregon, you don't really know who they are because they have so many jerseys.
So many jerseys. Yeah, because growing up, I mean, even watching Tennessee, University of Tennessee, they had that light orange, almost looked like a creamsicle color. I remember
we don't talk about that too much around my family.
You don't talk. Okay, got it. I hear you.
No. I grew up,
but distinctive
yeah.
teams. I get what you're saying. Like certain teams stand out, and
now
you just know.
They tried a few years ago to change up and go to a gray jersey, and my fans, the fans here in this area, just hated it.
Horrible. Yeah, when you do the gray with like orange and white, it's just there's no way that can go. It's just no way it will ever go. And yes, certain teams just like you said, they stand out. I mean, like look at North Carolina, North Carolina basketball, the Jordan, that power, that Tar Heel blue. I mean, that stands out forever. That court, know right off the bat that that's UNC. So I mean, I'm down here in Raleigh, and Duke is Duke, and NC State. Is NC State, but something about that powder blue UNC it just blows everything out of the water with that look. And they never really, went off that look. It's always kind of been, I think in the 90s they mixed a little darker blue in there, but that powder blue and that white is so beautiful.
Why would you change?
Oh, because
I got to see North Carolina State play in the Music City Bowl a few years ago, and I do like their colors, but compared to North Carolina, it's just there's no contest.
Oh, there's no contest. Exactly. Color-wise, I mean, yeah, and especially here with basketball, it's just, obviously Duke and North Carolina will always be battled out, but in terms of jersey, there's no comparison. I mean, you look growing up with the Yankees and the Mets, I mean, I always thought the Mets had really good jerseys, and I always loved the orange and the blue, especially the Doc Gooden era with the pinstripes. Yes. I mean, they had beautiful jerseys, and then, like I said, in the 2000s, they went into black jerseys. It was just like it was almost like the Padres. Thankfully, the Padres went back this year to the brown and yellow, because where did they get blue from? It was just like, and you see this with so many teams and so many different, whether it's basketball, football. I mean, you go with what works, especially if you have something that worked already. I mean, the fans want it. They do. They know. You think fans don't know, but they really know, and you'll see in the crowd what they wear too.
Well, I appreciate your time today, Joseph, for letting us delve into a little bit more. And again, where can they find you on Twitter so you can build your 17,000 followers a little bit more?
Yes, sir. So it's Goat Jerseys, GOATJERSEYS. That's on Twitter. Also, December 1st, I'll have goatjerseys.com. Well, I'll be having some merch on there. I have Q&As I've done with a lot of famous people that enjoy jerseys like we do. So there's going to be a lot of different things on there. But, yeah, anybody's out there, follow. I interact. I do it on a daily. And I really appreciate you bringing me on. And any other time you want to, do this again, definitely just reach out. It'll be fun.
Oh, we will. And send a link to all that stuff to my Twitter page, and it will go on the Sports History Network as well when this show drops.
Yes, sir. We'll do.
I tell you what, we're all of us on the Sports History Network are football and sports geeks and nerds and whatever else you want to call. And we respect people who respect the game like you do.
I appreciate that, man. Likewise, and I appreciate you having me on.
And y'all, thank you for joining us again for another episode of Football is Family.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
At the Sports History Network, we're all about sports yesteryear, and so we're so pleased to introduce you to Row One, an online memorabilia gallery and shop that brings your sports history to life anywhere. The Row One gallery includes over 5,200 gorgeously reproduced prints of team posters, game program covers, game tickets, advertisements, and more in baseball, pro and college football, pro and college basketball, and more. And any gallery item may be printed in a variety of sizes on wood, metal, canvas, acrylic, or poster paper. And in Row One shop, check out the thousands more of unique items with the retro and historical designs dating back to 1876, including t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, phone cases, mugs, blankets, pillows, towels, and even shower curtains. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com, ROW1, for access to the full Row One catalog and for gallery prints and gift items, plus get a 15% discount off all prints on the Row One Pictorum Gallery with coupon code SHN15. Follow the link on the show notes.